Welcome to Straight from the Hive. I'm Alan Turanski, President and Beekeeper at GloryBee, and I want to say welcome to my very special guest, Dr. Ramesh Sagili, Professor of Apiculture at Oregon State University. Welcome, Ramesh.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, really excited to be here.
Okay, well, we're going to just jump right in. I got a lot of great questions for you. Our viewers really want to hear from you today. So what first inspired you to work with honeybees, the Apis mellifera?
Yeah, so I love this question because I know we all as bee enthusiasts get this question all the time, right? How did you get into bees? So I, as you know, I am from India and I grew up in India until I obtained my Bachelor's of Science and a Master of Science in Agriculture, and then I came to the United States around 2001 to pursue my PhD in entomology at Texas A&M. So I, as a kid, I don't think I decided that I should study bees, but I really appreciated their services. The first-hand experience, I would say, is about when I was 10 or 11 years old. My grandparents in India they were farmers, so they used to produce a lot of hybrid sunflower. And so I used to help them once I had the summer break. So I go to this farm, and they are hiring these people to hand pollinate. So they are using gloves. It's a hybrid, so you need to transfer pollen from one flower to the other, right? So they are using these gloves, and then these people are doing. I was like surprised. He said, I did help them with my gloves too. But then I asked my grandparents, is that how the pollination is done? And then he said, no, this is a painful process, but then we don't have enough bees to do the pollination here.
Oh.
And I didn't know, I didn't ask him why, but he just said, I vaguely remember, he said, we don't have enough bees, maybe it's because of indiscriminate use of pesticides, I don't know, but we don't have enough population. They had some, but not adequate for doing the pollination job. So that's when I thought, oh wow, this is really, really important. I know as a kid probably you don't really appreciate at that time, but that was in my mind all the time that, so we need bees for pollination, and this is a great thing. So that was my initial first hands-on experience. But then I didn't decide until I was in my undergrad program in India that I should study bees. This was my exposure to an apiculture class when I was taking my coursework for the Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. So that was my first experience really working with bees, and then I decided, wow, this is the best insect that we can think of, and probably, and entomology in general was my interest. So I thought if I pursue a PhD, that probably will be somewhere close to bees.
Okay, and now are bees still the best insect?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, they are the most important and most intelligent insect on the planet.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I want to hear a little bit more about that today. Okay, so my next question is, how did Oregon State's Bee Lab start working with Save the Bee? Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah. So before even I give you the backstory, it's been a very impactful and wonderful partnership, I would say, for the last 10 years, I believe. So we at OSU are really grateful and fortunate to have this unwavering support of GloryBee in the form of Save the Bee initiative. So I still recall, I think you were the one who approached initially that you did want to help the bees somehow with helping the research program, and then that's about I think 2012 or so. So I still vaguely remember our discussions, and so I still really appreciate you approaching us to help the program, because research dollars are not easy to get, and we as researchers always struggle to find funds, and as I said, this has been a wonderful and really instrumental collaboration or partnership for the last 10 years, and we look forward to having that in the next 10 or 20 years as well.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Save the Bee is excited to celebrate 10 years, and I think we'll hear a little bit more about what the Bee Lab's been doing and what great work it's been accomplishing. I know it does a lot of collaborative work. One part of that really drew me to working with Oregon State wasn't that it was in the backyard in Oregon. It was really that the commercial beekeepers were so enthusiastic about the support and the impact that the Oregon State Bee Lab was making on beekeeping and farming practices. And so I think that's really what drew me to reach out to you and connect and talking to you. And of course, over the last 10 years, with the continued support that Save the Bee's given, we've seen a lot of the great work that you and your staff have done, and just how collaborative it's been with the commercial beekeeping industry and with the farmers. So with that, Ramesh, what are some of the significant research accomplishments of the Oregon State Bee Lab over the last couple of years?
Yeah, no, great. So before I start giving you a long list here, as you said, Oregon beekeepers have been really, really instrumental in getting this program up and running. I can't ask for a better state and a better beekeepers group here. So they have been very instrumental. So we basically have done mostly both basic and applied research that is meaningful for beekeepers, and it's more practical. So I'll not go into, I know you're aware of our program well, and you visited our lab recently and saw what we do. So I'll not go into the long list of all these projects, but I'll just mention some highlights here for. So our lab has been, I'm really proud, and again, I have a really top-notch staff that you probably have seen. All that we have currently, and those who have helped the lab in the past.
What's impressive about your staff is it's both the staff and the student staff. They're all very impressive. They're all highly engaged, passionate, and it's a very impressive crew for sure, Ramesh.
Yeah. So again, as you know, I'm not the one running the show. I just supervise all of them and give them directions. But without all those incredible people that I have in the lab, this program would not have been possible. So I really acknowledge the support of GloryBee, Oregon State Beekeepers, and my staff and students for what we do here at Oregon State University. So I'll start with the honeybee nutrition research that we have been doing for the last 6 or 7 years now. So we are in the forefront in this critical research on honeybee nutrition. So basically we are trying to understand the micronutrient requirements and their role in honeybee nutrition, which has been a big which has been an understudied area for almost 30-40 years. Most of this research was done in 80s and 90s, and after that no one was even picking up from there. So we are one of the labs. I'm not saying we are the only lab. There are probably 3 or 4 other labs, including some USDA labs in the country that are doing nutrition research, but I think we have started a lot of basic and applied research in the last 5-6 years, which I'm pretty sure in the next 5 or 6 years will really start yielding results that might be very meaningful for beekeepers. So for example, we got a grant from USDA like about a year and a half ago, where we are trying to establish a database for pollen nutritional composition, which is lacking. So we all suggest, right, as a beekeeper, probably you get a lot of questions like that. Give me top 5 plants that we can plant in our backyard that are good for bees in terms of pollen and nectar. And that's a great question. And we have great lists from a lot of non-profits, and even USDA NRCS has a great list of plants that people can use to plant. But the only thing we found lacking was most of this was based on attractiveness, right? So attractiveness doesn't always translate into better nutrition, or so some of that might be good. Maybe you take an example, bachelor's button or borage. So they all are good, but we don't know really the composition of pollen. So that's a big undertaking, but I think we are ambitious, and again, with GloryBee support, we have done some preliminary work in the past. Now with this USDA grant, we want to take it more forward and look for those pollen nutritional compositions for at least 100 different plant species that are beneficial for bees. So that's a really, really exciting one. So hopefully in the next 5 years, we'll have a great database for beekeepers, farmers, whoever is interested in planting resources for bees.
That just for the audience and for me, I'm a beekeeper, but I'm not a scientist. But as a layman, I just think, that's one of the exciting work that's being done. Is nutrition's critical, right? It's critical to our health. It's critical to bee health. It just makes sense. And so understanding bee nutrition at a specific level is really going to be hugely impactful. So I'm super excited about that work. Tell us about one or two other accomplishments that you guys have had over the last couple of years.
Yeah, totally. And just reiterating what you said, I always say nutrition is the first line of defense for bees. Like it's for us, right? Yeah. If you have better nutrition, probably you can take a little more stresses. I'm not saying we should have more stresses on us, but at least that helps you combat those stresses that you have on your system. So So again, a little bit more to the nutrition part. That's a more basic research I explained, but we have done a lot of research in the past looking at improving some best management practices for beekeepers when they are in crops like hybrid carrot seed or blueberries, when they are struggling to keep those hives healthy, because most of these crops that I mentioned are relatively nutrient deficient for bees. For several reasons. Some are hybrids, they don't produce enough nectar and pollen. So we have provided some good recommendations for beekeepers on how much protein supplement they can feed to their hives to keep them at least not like going beyond what they're expecting, but at least to sustain them in those crops so that the hives don't decline and they are not in big trouble when they come out of those stressful crops. So a lot of applied research as well, not just basic. So coming back to the other part of research, I mean, it's not technically research, but we have a honeybee health diagnostics as well. So where we take hundreds of samples each year, and suppose as a beekeeper you send me a sample to look at what's wrong with your hive. So we look for varroa, we look for nosema, and sometimes if you request, we can do this tedious tracheal mite dissections as well to find if there are any tracheal mites. So those are a few things that we have been doing as a diagnostic lab as well, just for Oregon beekeepers, so that they can keep their hives healthy. And then we also do a lot of work on honeybee health front, where mostly we are looking at improving the efficacy, or because beekeepers use a lot of products to control varroa mites, because you all know varroa is still a huge challenge for the beekeeping industry. So we have been looking at some of these products, look at their efficacy and appropriate use, so that beekeepers can get good control of mites with their existing products. For example, we did an oxalic acid vapor study for the last 2 years. So we have some good data for beekeepers, and I'll be presenting some at the Oregon State Beekeeper Conference as well, to show how they can effectively use oxalic acid vapors, formic acid, and other tools they have for better control of mites. So that's another area of research we have been focusing on, which is really practical and meaningful for beekeepers in the short run as well.
I think it's pretty fantastic to have a lab that's doing practical application research, right? Things that can really be implemented by the beekeepers to improve the bee health. So that's fantastic.
So I know pesticides has been a big thing on many people's minds, and so as a researcher, I work both with growers and beekeepers, and that's how we want to balance here to see that how can we best protect our pollinators from exposure to insecticides. And so we have done some work, and many growers are really cognizant of the problem, and they do approach us and ask, oh, we're going to spray this insecticide, should we be doing this, or should we avoid this insecticide, or is there a way we can apply this still when bees are off the field, or something on those lines. So we have done some of that research and helped some of these industries, especially hybrid carrot seed industry as well, to see what insecticides can be used when bees are there, or which ones they should be avoiding, so that there is less exposure to bees. And there is an extension publication, if your podcast audience is interested. We revised it a few years ago. It's called How to Reduce Bee Poisoning from Pesticides.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a PNW 591. I get a lot of calls from California growers and across the country to get copies of this, even though there is a PDF free available online, but they want a hard copy as well, so they can keep that in their trucks to look at recommendations to see how best they can protect bees from exposure to insecticides.
That's great. That's a great resource, and we'll include that in our podcast links, because that's a fantastic resource that we want to make sure is available to everybody that you guys have created there at OSU. So Ramesh, when we think about the future, what's your hope for the partnership between the OSU Bee Lab and Save the Bee as we look to the future?
Yeah, great, excellent question. And as I said, we are more than fortunate and really excited about this wonderful partnership we had for over the last 10 years. So I envision further continuation of this extremely productive partnership with the goal of finding solutions for beekeepers in tackling the numerous challenges they are facing in keeping their bees alive. And they still have, there are some new emerging problems as well. So I see that this is a very fruitful collaboration, and I see it going to new heights in the next few years. Absolutely, that's what we need, solutions, and we're going to keep working away at it. And
we need to all work together. So it's exciting for us to participate in the work that you're doing and the work that beekeepers are doing, and ultimately make a difference. So we'll keep grinding away at it and working together. What are some of the best practices that people can implement in their everyday life to help bees?
Yeah, so that's a very important thing for your audience to think about as well. The couple of or maybe three things that I would suggest to your audience is, if possible, please enhance foraging habitat for bees by planting flowering plants that provide both nectar and pollen resources, not just for a month or two, but on a continuous basis. And especially bees struggle to find enough nectar and pollen resources late in the summer and fall. So that's the time when they really need help. So if you can plant something that continuously blooms around that time, I think that would be really amazing. And again, I know some of you probably live in apartments, you can't do much. So this is for someone who has a backyard and can do something for bees. I think that would be really instrumental. And those same backyard gardeners who have something in bloom for, so I would say try to restrict use of insecticides as much as you can. And also, if there is really a need, then probably use your judgment. I think judicious use of insecticides is really, really important to promote bee health. So that's another thing. And just for those, I said those who live in apartments, they can't do much for bees in terms of planting. And for all, I would say appreciate the valuable services provided by bees and spread the awareness about them, so that the next generation and this generation will not take them for granted. And I know we have taken bees for granted for a long time, and I think that has led to some of the problems we have today.
Absolutely. I love that. We can all spread the awareness, and we can all learn things and be fascinated. So find a neighborhood beekeeper, get to know them, go visit their hives, have your kids visit their hives. You'll be blown away, and you'll have a new appreciation, and you can implement some of the things that Dr. Ramesh has recommended. Well, thanks again, Ramesh, for joining us, and this has been fantastic. Again, straight from the hive with Dr. Ramesh Sagili from Oregon State University's Bee Lab. Thanks, Ramesh, and we'll talk to you soon. Look for our next podcast.
Yeah. Thanks, Alan. It was a pleasure.